Hi, and welcome back to Tech, Marry, and Kill, a podcast about what we love about tech, what we hate about tech, and who makes weapons out of both. I'm Aya Jaff, and I'm here with
Jessica Burbank.
And today we have a packed one. In the news segment, we're getting into the Palantir Manifesto, which you have probably heard of. And Jessica has also been out in the world making enemies, I have heard, which I fully support. Our main topic for today is labor movements inside of big tech. I just got back from a really big conference in Berlin, and I have thoughts and interviews with me. I'm ready. Let's go. Okay, so Palantir, again, is in the news, the data and surveillance company you have probably heard of by now. They have published a manifesto, and I've been staring at it for a couple of days because there have been so many tweets and mentions and just people like getting riled up. Basically, if I had to make sense of it, they're basically like presenting their ideology in a way. So there's a we in this manifesto, basically Western liberal democracies, and a they. So like basically everyone else whose cultures the document codes as inferior, as threats, as the reason we can't have nice things. And the solution, of course, conveniently, is more AI, more weapons of software. More Palantir. Like, what a shock, what a surprise. Palantir is saying Palantir is the solution to everything. So yeah, the document says that soft power and soaring rhetoric aren't enough anymore. That what free and democratic societies need to prevail is hard power. And hard power in this century is built on software. The word prevail, I believe, tells you everything you need to know because they're saying it doesn't need to coexist. It doesn't need to cooperate. They chose the word prevail. So they just assume from the first line that coexistence must be off the table. And actually, they never defend that assumption. It's just like the starting condition, which we know that the Silicon Valley bros like to start off with. So they're saying civilizations must compete and we must be the winners by our software. I believe we have heard this before. This doesn't come as a surprise, this manifesto, but they have written it all down. What do you think, Jessica? Have you heard of this manifesto? Has it come across your timeline?
Yes, the official Palantir account tweeted some key points from it. And there's such a focus on the military. It does feel like they're saying the quiet part out loud in this. The question is not whether AI weapons will be built. It is who will build them and for what purpose. National service should be a universal duty. They're talking about moving away from an all-volunteer force to fight the next war. So basically talking about a military draft. And so then also, if a U.S. Marine asks for a better rifle, we should build it. And the same goes for software. So really explicitly saying we want to be at war. Like, it's just an accepted premise that we will be at war. And I think that's what we need to focus on, because there is no step of like, how can AI help with negotiations and better broker peace among nations? Why was diplomatic AI never a conversation? We just went straight to weapons and how AI can be useful for that. And I think that's really telling.
I completely agree with you. It also reads like a sales deck. Like every single position in that document, the civilizational threat, the urgency, the call for more and more hard power, everything just leads to buying more Palantir. That's like the solution to it all. And I don't know. I have been asked to like say a couple more things when it comes to that, and I feel like I'm tired of having to explain why this is dangerous. Palantir software is already inside the French intelligence services, the German military, police forces across Europe. So those institutions are now outsourcing their threat assessment to a private company. It's like they're selling a subscription to this world view, and we should just all subscribe to it because they said this is a threat. And I don't know if we all agree on the same threat assessment. This feels forced onto us. So they're here to just be like, okay, Our tools aren't here to serve your foreign policy. They're here to enforce ours, basically. And governments are buying it. Literally, they're buying and, getting into the subscription models. And we talked about this the past couple times.
I will say, when an American citizen writes a manifesto promising violence and then publishes it, they get arrested by the FBI. But when a tech CEO promises violence and writes a manifesto, their stock value goes up? Like, what are we doing? This should not be like that.
It shouldn't be.
The FBI should arrest the Palantir CEO, Carl.
They should.
Get him.
Yeah.
They won't, but imagine if they would. Kash Patel's too busy being drunk right now. It's a huge story in the US right now.
Oh.
Is that our FBI director has a drinking problem.
Oh, okay. Okay, switching gears. Jessica, I saw you were out and about recently, and you were pretty vocal about some technology that you have been covering. So I want to give you the floor. What did you do? What happened? What was this all about?
Yes, my friend Ben Jordan has been reporting on Flock's security vulnerabilities, hacking cameras, showing their live feed. And Flock has kind of been in denial that these security breaches exist, but he's done really good reporting on Flock from that angle. He recently found, through a FOIA request by Jason Hunyar, who's a citizen of Dunwoody, Georgia, that one of the local community centers, the Marcus Jewish Community Center in Dunwoody, has cameras all over, in the pool, in the fitness center, in a gymnastics studio that's used for children's and teams gymnastics. And the logs of who's accessed these surveillance cameras include Flock employees. Flock does offer third-party private businesses this service of managing their surveillance network. And the explanation was by the city council. I drove down to Georgia, went to the meeting. They said the JCC cameras were being accessed as a part of a sales demo, which makes no sense to me. Like, hey, we logged in and pulled up the children's gymnastics studio as a crucial part of our sales demonstration. What's the selling point? Why is that an advertisement? Why is that a part of emergency law enforcement response? None of the explanation made sense. But they didn't call on Ben Jordan to come up and speak during public comment. And it kind of shows how our democracy is falling apart, that at the municipal level, someone who's looked into what's going on at a community center and reported on it and has gotten millions of views and national eyes on this scandal is intentionally not called, almost as punishment for his reporting. But I was called to go up. So I just spoke about how Flock's gained contracts with municipalities through questionable methods with not enough public input. And the mayor was offended by that. She directly spoke to my comments saying, we didn't get this in secret and no one's getting kickbacks from Flock. And so they ended up voting unanimously to extend their contract in the same meeting. And so what does it mean that a $7 billion tech company can have unanimous support from law enforcement and the city council, regardless of what public backlash is, what security vulnerabilities exist, their misuse of the cameras? None of that matters. And in fact, our democratic mechanisms of public input will be denied to citizens who speak out about these companies. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at. And so it was a crazy time in Georgia. And then Flock told me my reporting was false. And then they got community noted. And my response was basically you're a huge company. If you're going to say my reporting that's based on a FOIA request of the logs of employees accessing, be specific. Say what is false and why. And they haven't gotten back to me on that. So
they just said it's wrong. We're not going to get into it. This is it. Do you feel like they were actually trying to discredit you, or just they were so sure, unanimous vote, that nobody's going to object to it, and you were just somebody who got on their nerves, and they were just just say that she's saying crazy things?
Yeah, they published this whole statement to accuse someone of spying on kids is wrong, when all we have in the logs is this Flock employee, Bob Carter, who's VP of sales, logging in and
Mm.
only accessing the gymnasium camera. And it's like, there's nothing false. Like, they disagreed with my wording. They disagreed that I said this is spying and that it's spying on kids, because that makes him seem like he's, doing inappropriate things, right? And I get why they would come to that conclusion. And there's a lot of questions people in the community, parents of these kids, have. Rightfully so. I think if it was my kids doing gymnastics in that studio, I wouldn't want a random middle-aged guy logging in and viewing them. They
No.
don't know he's viewing them. They see that the cameras are there, probably logging in case something happens, and then you go back and watch, not being remotely live viewed. And so I don't think they were trying to discredit me, maybe. But I genuinely think it's just a disconnect. They think that they can do no wrong, and they can't understand the public's perspective whatsoever. I think that's where they're coming from.
What were some of the reactions you were getting after you uploaded that video, basically, where you laid out every argument?
People are very supportive. I think at the beginning of my Flock coverage, no one was talking about it. No mainstream stories. 404 Media and the EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundations, were the only outlets, national outlets, that were reporting on Flock from a critical perspective. And now it feels like everyone knows who Flock is and is against them. And it's people have been pushed to a point where the comment section is now, we should destroy Flock cameras. People in the comment section are saying, well, what are we supposed to do if no one will listen to us? They're giving us no other options. And it reminds me of the Martin Luther King Jr. quote that a riot is the voice of the unheard, that when you feel like you have no say or input in a democracy, you are forced to do things like destroy these cameras. I think that's how people feel. I'm not saying that that's the answer, because what does that mean? Flock's going to have to get more money from the city and drain our education budgets to put a new one up. So I don't know. I don't think that's the answer, but that's where people are at. They're really angry.
Do you think there are going to be any organizations soon, people coming together, like any other people speaking out about this?
Yeah, so Ben Jordan, of course, has been a huge part of this. He, spoke out about how they didn't call on him at the meeting and how his reporting's been received. And Jason Hunyard, the citizen that put in the FOIA request to get the information on the logs, there's like a group of us that's going to keep reporting on Flock. And I think it's interesting because Flock's headquarters is like within miles of Dunwoody. Dunwoody's a new town. It's a part of a suburb of Atlanta that used to be a part of Atlanta. Atlanta is where Flock is headquartered. And so I think that makes it more interesting, because in other municipalities where there's been a huge public backlash, and organizations like Eyes Off Eugene in Oregon that have fought the Flock contract and had organizers show up and give public testimony and tell city council what Flock has been doing and the many cases of misuse, contracts have been outright canceled. And I think a reason that didn't happen in Dunwoody is because Flock is so close by. And law enforcement in the area really loves Flock and tells the city council they really need it. And I think that they're making a huge mistake, and I don't think they know it yet.
Well, everyone follow Jess online. She will be reporting more on this. And I hope that people come together and form a more stable organization, because this seems like it's based on a couple of voices that are really strong. Thanks so much for doing that. I saw the comments. They were very supportive.
Yeah, what are they going to sue me for? I have negative monies, They can try. But then they open themselves up to discovery. So I would love for that to happen, actually. But you were at sort of a manifestation of many people who have similar political goals and want to organize. This conference, I
Yeah.
feel like, was a beacon of hope.
It was. It was. And I didn't expect it to be. So I just got back from Berlin. As I said, there was this conference called Cables of Resistance, which I really liked. And I believe some people might be thinking tech conference, I don't know, VC panels or like keynotes on disruption or like how to use more AI. But this was the complete opposite because these were so many people that were like, they were organizing, they were union organizers, they were content moderators, they were delivery workers, researchers, people who are actually like thinking about what type of tech we are building today and for what reasons. I was just listening. I was there with a friend and she kind of introduced me to some people. I left with 2 interviews, one with an organization from, maybe you've heard of them, No Tech for Apartheid, and one with a TikTok ex-safety worker. Let's jump into it. So yeah, first off, for anyone who hasn't spent the last decade deep into this stuff, I know I haven't. I was like, wait, what are exactly labor movements? What does it mean? So at its core, this is how I've understood it. Please chime in if you have anything to add. But like, it's workers organizing together to get a better deal. This can be at a tech company. This can be at different places, but obviously, because I was at a tech conference, these were people who have worked at these tech companies. And what they were trying to organize for was better pay, better conditions, protection from being fired for no reason, or a bunch of other things too, like more protections for people who are pregnant, who are disabled. So that has been the idea at this conference, and they were talking about it and like about certain strategies, how they should go about things social media wise, talk to the press or not, how to use different infrastructure channels. Because as you might know, it might be a bit tricky to organize against the tech company and using their tech platform. So that was one thing I figured was a challenge for these people, to find different ways to communicate with each other, which is why this conference was so important, because for the very first time, people who were only connected through Signal to each other, like knowing each other's nicknames or like knowing each other from certain groups, they were seeing each other for the first time. And you could like see their eyes light up, be like, oh my God, I've only talked to you online this past year. So nice to finally meet you in person. So it was really, really nice to see that. And also, before we get into what type of labor movements I have interviewed, I thought we could talk briefly about how different it looks to be organizing in Germany and organizing, like talking about actions in Germany versus in the US, because this is what I've also learned through this conference. There are pretty different rules to this. Here in Germany, you have the right to strike. It is constitutionally protected. You have strong unions, real collective bargaining, which is basically the Works Constitution Act, which gives employees actual co-determination rights inside the company. Like, legally, workers have a seat at the table. Jessica, do you know what it is like in the US?
We've had a big struggle around this because while we do have some constitutional protections, for example, like employers cannot intervene with people working on a union drive, but we are seeing people like Amazon hiring union busters, and then it's caught up in court and the appeals process for months and months, and the NLRB has a backlog. That's the National Labor Relations Board that handles all of these disputes. And so that's been underfunded for years. So even though we do have a lot of protections for union organizing, we don't get to necessarily enjoy them. And that is unfortunately by design.
Yeah, that's what I also found out. And also something else that I didn't know played a huge role was the residency status here in Germany. So I thought everybody had the right. And yes, technically you have the right to strike regardless of your passport. But in practice, the fear that a workplace conflict could blow up your residency situation, that is real. And that has been keeping workers silent. Companies know that, of course. And I believe in the US, it's even more brutal. Like, undocumented workers technically have rights under federal labor law, but the threat of immigration enforcement, that's a weapon that does get used. They also know how to use it. So I was at this panel on labor movements, And that's what the first interview is also about. So No Tech for Apartheid. That's a worker-led campaign from Google and Amazon employees. They have this one issue they talk about constantly. It's the Project Nimbus. It's a cloud computing contract between Google, Amazon, and the Israeli government and military. They signed this one in 2021, and it's worth $1.2 billion. And their demand is basically to just cancel this contract. So they are going out on the street and saying that they don't want this. And they're asking, like, what is the infrastructure I'm building actually being used for? And Google's official statement, of course, is that Nimbus isn't directed at military purposes. But we know better because we have had people saying, like, for example, the head of Israel's National Cyber Directorate said in 2024 that, quote, phenomenal things are happening in battle because of the Nimbus cloud. So you decide if they are lying or not. There have been sit-ins in 2024 at the Google offices in New York and Sunnyvale. Workers physically occupied the cloud CEO's office. 9 people got arrested, and shortly after, Google fires 28 employees, many of them not even directly part of those sit-ins. And No Tech for Apartheid calls it retaliation. And Google calls it policy enforcement. So yeah, this is the company whose motto was literally "Don't be evil." And they arrested their own workers for saying, we don't want to build tools for an active military operation. Google didn't just fire 28 employees because of them being a problem. They fired those 28 people because the whole world was watching them. This got covered everywhere. So that was a message. I want to talk about this audio clip that I have with me because I asked her about the challenges she was facing at No Tech for Apartheid.
Hi, I'm Aslam. I'm
With studio voice.
part of No Tech for Apartheid Europe, and I'm here at this conference.
What made you be part of this movement?
So I myself worked in big tech, and I have realized that tech workers are being systematically silenced or censored when they ask questions about ethical use of their labor. And this is why I thought it is so necessary that people reclaim their agency over their tech that they produce and to make a change about the use of it after months and months of campaigning to demand ethical standards.
What's the biggest challenge right now that you're facing?
The biggest challenge is actually the chilling effects. The chilling effect is the self-censoring or self-adjusting of behavior based on indirect repression or witnessing repression for other workers, so that people start to self-censor or be scared to question things. I would say this is the biggest challenge and it is also the biggest threat to big tech, that their workers develop a conscience, or their workers develop empathy with the targets of their tools being used for human rights violations or for unethical standards, and that they ask questions. They question the labor, and that they create this kind of friction in this kind of fairy tale of ethical use of their tech. This is the biggest fear of big tech, that their employees develop empathy and compassion with targets of their tech.
I think the chilling effect is so interesting. People self-centering because they're living under regimes where they feel like they can't say their thoughts. It's like Carlos with Disrupt once said to me that there's this meme of a donkey that's chained to like a traffic cone, but it thinks it can't move. And so it just stays put because it feels that it has the rope on it, but it can move. Like, it can knock over the traffic cone. It can pull the rope off easily. But we do this thing in times of fascism and authoritarianism where we feel like we police our own behavior without being told we have to.
And the way she's she said that's like the biggest challenge they're facing. She was encouraging everyone to like speak up more, and she was giving out compliments left and right to all organizers. I feel like this was the one thing she wanted to make sure everybody knows, that they have power. I didn't know this word before, the chilling effect. Like in light of this, those 28 firings, as I said, they were definitely a message they wanted to send out to every other engineer at Google, saying this is what happens. And it basically worked, which is exactly what makes it so remarkable that No Tech for Apartheid kept going. They know what it costs, and they go anyway. So thank you so much, No Tech for Apartheid. And I also think it's so special how they're connecting with the dock workers in Italy. This is a thing that's to come, something that they're planning on doing. But for anyone not knowing what the dock workers are doing, these were basically dock workers in Genoa, Livorno, Naples. They were blocking a ship carrying containers suspected to be headed for Israel. This was in 2025. And there was also like a general strike where 2 million people in the streets across 80 Italian cities, they blocked everything, the blocchiamo tutto. And that was like workers coming together and having a momentum. And I thought that was beautiful. When I saw those news, that really gave me hope.
Yeah, I think everyone from around the world was watching. And I love how they put it as we have an obligation. It's not even we decided to do this. We all came together and thought about it for a long time. It was just felt that if weapons are leaving this port, then it's our job to make sure they can't and they don't if they're being used for apartheid. And I think that kind of courage and thinking about cruelty, they're right that any sense of ethics is the greatest threat to these people, not just big tech, but also leaders that facilitate apartheid states by arming them. And it's becoming a movement of movements, right? You have people in Google saying, no, we're going to use our powers as workers and the employees of Google to ensure that our company has ethical standards as well. Of course, these people have things in common and can learn from each other strategically. And I think it's good that that's happening on a global scale now. That's so cool.
That is really cool. I have a second interview with me. Let's listen in on it.
Okay, my name is Natalia. I'm an ex-TikTok worker, unemployed now for some months now. I've been part of the restructuring process there at TikTok, and 150 employees got laid off. And through that process, we started to organize, and I was one of the organizers there. So it meant we as workers were talking to each other and organizing the campaign around the strike, which we did. And we were the ones with the best severance package in the end, compared to the other workers at TikTok. So I think you can easily become engaged into that work.
What's the thing that radicalized you specifically?
So what radicalized me is that it's not the first time I went to restructuring. This is like the second big time, but they laid off everyone. Before, my friends already got laid off, and there they said, we're thinking of just certain parts of the company staying. So people that were migrants had to go already. Some months later, everybody has to be laid off. No matter what, no matter if you have children, if you have family that needs the money you have to pay for them, or you have any debts, or you have any medical issues, they didn't care about it. They just said, okay, your number, you're gone, you go away and don't bother all of us, and don't talk to the other colleagues, because they also told us, hey, don't come to the office anymore, no longer human in their eyes. And I think that was the thing where I was like, okay, I actually don't care so much about severance money or how much money I'm getting. I just wanted to be a human again. I wanted to have my dignity back that they took away from me. So that was my radicalization point. I got to talk to other content moderators at Meta or in outsourcing companies, and seeing how they are treated, and that it's the same everywhere. It's not just a problem specific for TikTok. It's for just in general big tech. It made made you feel like, okay, we have to actually organize together. And it's one of the problems. I think it's really, really hard already for somebody like me to organize together with the office in London, which is so far away from Berlin. Or how should I then organize in America with the American TikTok workers? Or how should I organize with the Chinese workers at TikTok? It's really hard. And then on top of it, technically speaking, we should organize with the Meta workers or with the Instagram workers and so on. It's like very, very hard. And also seeing that there's something like that never happened before. Like, we are living in a globalized world, but sadly workers have never globalized their working power and the leverage and stuff like that. So I think this is something that we have to actually work for in the future.
I love how people who are new use language that's so accessible, because there's such jargon in organizing and labor. I appreciate how this sort of began as almost workers coming together about what's going on in the workplace and then realizing it's something bigger, because so many people think about labor unions as workers organizing for better pay, benefits, healthcare, worker protections. But I think most people that dedicate their lives to organizing unions and in the labor movement, it's really about democracy, because we accept that a political system should be a democracy, a government should run with the people's input. But when it comes to our economy, especially in a capitalist society, it's just accepted that the people with money, the people with capital get to decide how our labor and resources are directed. And that's very authoritarian in nature. But unions and worker organizing helps bring that democracy to the workplace, because if you're dedicating most of your waking hours to this, you should have a say as to what it goes on to produce and the impact it has on the world. And I love that that's becoming a thing in a very skilled profession, whereas labor unions, at least in the United States, are especially in more working with your hands, blue-collar professions.
Would you say those tech workers, those safety workers are more, from what I've heard, they're not that highly skilled, but they know, like, context-wise, culturally speaking, what type of content they should be looking out for, and that's what they do really, really well. But I'm not sure.
Like a brute force sort of a thing, right?
Yeah.
They're not being creative. They're doing what they're directed to do. Yeah, I don't know how we would categorize it. I feel like we're always redefining in labor movements what is working class, what is the division that's most meaningful. And right now there's a lot of people saying it's all of us versus the billionaire class. Some people saying it's the 1% versus the 99%. Other people say if you come from a family where your parents have college degrees, then you're not working class, and college education is the determinant factor. Other people say if you're earning over $100,000, there's no way you're working class. I think another definition that comes from like the Marxists and stuff is if you have to work to make a living, you're working class. But if you don't have to work and you have enough money that you can invest it and it just multiplies, then you're in the ruling class. You're in the capitalist class. I like that definition the best, maybe.
I didn't know about these different definitions. Thank you.
It's a constant conversation. It gets really pedantic and annoying.
Maybe for anybody who didn't know like what was going on with TikTok, here's what happened. So she was talking about 150 employees getting laid off. TikTok has around 400 employees here in Berlin, and about 150 of them, the ones she mentioned, this was the entire trust and safety team that were moderating German language content, plus part of the live department. And they were told their jobs were being just like dissolved. This announcement came in 2024, and what followed was an escalation. The first ever strike by employees of a social media platform in Germany. So that was pretty revolutionary. And then they were trying to get TikTok and to discuss, some of the things they were organizing for. But TikTok never showed up. So they had a second 4-day strike this time. And on day 3, workers rallied outside the labor court in Berlin because at that time, the same court where TikTok was simultaneously trying to establish the legal basis to fire everyone without a union agreement. They were like marching outside that court saying, hey, we trained your machines, pay us what we deserve. These workers spent months and months labeling data, training the AI that was then used to justify eliminating their own jobs. This playbook is everywhere. In 2023, for example, Meta fired over 180 content moderators at its Nairobi outsourcing hub. So when workers started organizing there, Meta switched contractors and allegedly told the new one not to hire anyone from the old team. We see the pattern. They outsource the work. They minimize legal exposure. They suppress organizing, and then they move on when it gets convenient. And I thought this Berlin example was really special because it was different. I don't think the whole discussion here was also about the severance package, as she said. This is about so much more. This is about how they're viewing people. She said she didn't feel human anymore. They just want to outsource the work. They want to keep the control. They want to get to make all the decisions and have no one in the room that can say no. And luckily for us, we have an organization called Verdi, and they were demanding all of these agreements that they were forced to do at the end of the day. So just so you know how it ended, it didn't end through a natural negotiation where TikTok came and talked to the workers. No, there was a mandatory conciliation committee that German law can force into existence when a company refuses to come to the table. So TikTok was dragged into this. And I mean, they kind of got what they wanted. The jobs are gone at the end of the day. The department got dissolved. But the severance package was signed off, and that's what they wanted. They had to pay for it at the end of the day. You know, this was the fight they were trying to bury deep, and this is what German law at the end of the day made possible. And that's exactly what these companies spend so much money on right now, also in Germany, making sure that law never catches up with them. That's why they were rallying outside that court and saying, you're trying to lay the basis for this to never work again successfully. I hope that they don't get through with this. I don't know if I should be hopeful, but I felt like we need a hopeful story this time around. And even though she lost her job, yes, she seemed pretty hopeful to me. She was like, hey guys, don't forget, societies can also change in a heartbeat. One time you look around and your workers are completely happy with their job and everything is okay. And then the next day you talk about the problems and they understand where you're coming from. And then all of a sudden they're part of it. They're part of the fight. And that was a moment where everyone laughed with her, and they were like, yeah, we know this can happen pretty easily. This was a feel-good story for me.
Yeah, we're constantly told that change is slow and it takes forever. And who does that benefit when we think that way?
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that they also used everyone at the conference to do sort of a direct action and take use of the manpower. That's great. I love that.
Yeah,
I think
more conferences like this, please.
Yes. Yeah. Bringing people together all in one place so you realize, okay, it's not just me alone organizing in my industry and against this company and in a vacuum. We're all in this together. I think people really need to be in a room with others to see that sometimes. And that's what these conferences do. I've been in conferences where it feels useless, corporate training, boring stuff, but labor union conferences, I've never felt like that.
Anyway, reach out to No Tech for Apartheid if you want to be part of their movement. I can also connect you to the wonderful person you just heard from TikTok, or the ex-TikTok worker, I should say. And I think we're at the end of this episode. What is your tech, marry, kill?
Okay, the tech is... I actually don't know the tech. I know the kill would be tech used for apartheid. Also the Palantir Manifesto. The marry labor unions. Tech labor unions, specifically. And then what should our tech be? What did we talk about that's useful this episode?
I think This conference really showed me that not everything needs to be solved through tech, like people seeing each other for the very first time face to face in real life. That was my best no tech moment for me. It didn't take a lot of Instagram ads. It didn't take a lot of mobilization efforts, so to speak, to get them all together, because this was a really good reason to come together. I think this is gaining momentum.
I can't believe I didn't say my kill is flock.
Do you want to
Also
go
good.
again? Please do.
No.
The kill is 100% flock. What do you mean?
Yeah, the kill is definitely flock.
Kill flock.
Yeah. I just don't see a world where there's ALPRs that are used in a positive way. I mean, there's so many DMs and stories that I have gotten my hands on and started to work through of just information about flock, new leads to follow. The more you look in, the worse it gets. So it's not looking good. I think we got to get rid of them. I think we got to kill that company. And it's a democratic thing. It's like, do we want to live in a mass surveillance state or not? It's I don't wish ill on flock in terms of their business. It's just like people, we've seen Greenpeace get sued for costing oil companies money. That's ridiculous. Like, if I am a citizen who doesn't think we should have mass surveillance in America, people are telling me to watch out that flock's going to sue me. But I don't think it's controversial to say we shouldn't have any mass surveillance company. That's my belief as a citizen. I don't want to live like that.
Yes, I'm Aya Jaff and I approve of this message.
Thanks for
I also
watching
don't
another
think we need mass surveillance companies. Not by the state, not by private companies.
Thanks for watching Tech, Marry, Kill. We'll see you next time.
Subscribe and follow.
And share.
And share. Bye.